try to amend only the things which haven't been said already. So first of all, I think it's important to state that there are several good approaches and several good and suitable ways to address this crisis. So I think one of the messages should be there is a point for coordination, for cooperation, just as our friend from as Kamil Aydin stated. Also cultural and social collaboration and integration. That's really important, I think. But on the other hand, it's also important to make use of the diversity, to learn from different approaches taken in different countries. So it will be hard to find the correct balance for that, and it's important to find it. Having said that, I think which we should keep in mind is that the 2008 crisis was very different from what we face today, because today this is a case where not the banks or the financial sector is the source of the crisis, but the possible solution to the crisis by providing liquidity. And that also means that we should be very careful not to well, let's say to overutilize the capacity of the financial sectors. So additionally, for loans and liquidity, there might be instruments as guarantees needed. And then in the second stage, I would propose some kind of smart staging. First of all, provide emergency liquidity to the private sector and the companies, including government instruments, but as one of the questions referred to, relying on the capacity of the financial markets mainly. And then in the second stage, we should have the time and the opportunity to assess which businesses are hit more severely than others, and then to also use subsidies and transfers and all the instruments to compensate for the losses incurred by the measures against the COVID pandemic. So I think we should keep in mind that it is some kind of transitory shock, hopefully, but with a big but. Because some of the sectors, especially transportation and international mobility, trade, perhaps also, or certainly also tourism, might be impacted for a longer time. So first of all, it's a temporary supply and demand side shock. And I would refrain from using demand side stimulus just right now, because people cannot consume. It's due to the lockdown. It might make sense in a later stage of the developments, but at the moment, when the lockdown will be relieved and released, we will see that hopefully most of the industries will recover, and other of the industries will be hit for a longer time, and structural measures would be needed there. So just a few words on the specific questions which I haven't covered with those statements so far. There was a question from Ms. Sedefeld on the do's and don'ts. I think it's not an exhaustive list, but I would suggest, well, no demand side measures at the moment, but at a later stage if needed. No persistent decrease in regulatory and supervisory frameworks, because we will have the need to be resilient and resistant to further crises in the future as well. But we should try to avoid cliff effects, so a smooth transition will be needed. I think that public sector stability and financial stability should be kept in mind, but with a relaxed view on that at the moment, of course. There should be a targeted transfer, a targeted use of transfer and subsidy instruments as well. And we should, and I think that's the main finding from that, and some of the colleagues stated that, provide sufficient financing and capacity for the healthcare sector. So there might be, as Mr. Hudson stated, the issue of economic dependency. I think we should be very careful that there are huge benefits of globalization and integrated markets and integrated societies as well. So we should carefully reconsider just-in-time production issues versus, for example, more kind of logistics, more traditional logistics with not just-in-time supply-side chains. We should use the benefits of distributed distribution and production chains as well. But be careful that in times of discontinuities in logistic chains, that there might be some buffers for coping with that as well. And well, I think as a last point, the very crucial issue will be to make sure that this crisis will be some kind of V-shape as far as this is possible, and that we try to save as many of the businesses as possible over the crisis, and then to provide much, let's say, brain work on the question where might be structural issues and which businesses and industries might be severely hit for the future. And everything, I think, will be related to transport, mobility, tourism, and so on. But I think the key to the solution of the problem is what you do, international cooperation and coordination on data, on measures. And so good luck in coping with that. I think that's very important. And thank you again for inviting me.